KSMR Coffin Radio.
Welcome to the exciting episode of Coffin Radio. I am Heartthrob Rob, and joining me today is the one, the only, May Valentine. How are you doing, May?
Hey everyone, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so cool to catch up with you here. I mean, you got a crowd, everybody, coming to come see you, so It's very cool. I love it. It's so cool to see you everywhere,
Thank you.
With wrestling, with NWA, with your publications, it's so cool. So I'm glad to catch up with you.
Awesome.
If we can kind of bring it back, I didn't know this as I'm Googling you, that you grew up, that you're Brazilian, but you grew up in Brazil?
I did.
What was that like for you?
I'm from Rio de Janeiro, so I moved to the U.S. when I was 21 years old. So I've been here now for 12 years. Growing up in Brazil was very different. It was a great time because my dad was a writer and my mom was a television actress. So I grew up in a very creative, artistic environment. So I had a very happy and creative childhood. I enjoyed writing and performing plays and dancing and singing. So I think I had a really great childhood living in Brazil.
It sounds like it. I mean, to see that you wrote your own novel or piece, I'm so sorry, it's called
Fugalasa. It's called Fugalasa. I know that's difficult. I have actually 4 published books. Fugalasa was the first book that I published. It was written when I was 16 years old. And it was a bestseller by the time I was 19 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like for you for that to happen, for your pen?
It was pretty insane. Yeah, when I was writing, I didn't even have a clue that I would even be published. And then my book hits sort of like my generation, the teenagers in my generation, because it was very honest and very raw, and I talked a lot about problems that I was going through as a teenager. So it was half a memoir. It's half a memoir, half a fiction, if that makes any sense. A lot of it is based on things that happened to me in my teenage years. So I talked about like having depression and drugs and losing my father when I was 11 years old. So it resonated with a lot of young people, and it became a bestseller.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're putting that honesty out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's where a lot of the best writing comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, and here I am talking about writing like you're not who you are. I mean, for you to be published and you've done Spin, Teen Vogue, Rolling Stone, MTV News. Well, how did that come about? Some of those things that you've done.
So after the success of my first book, I was actually asked by the largest newspaper in Brazil to be a columnist for them.
Wow.
So that's how I started writing for press. I started writing about music, and I had a rock and roll column in the newspaper. And then from that, I just got invited to work for several different places. I had my own segment on MTV in Brazil, and I just wrote for lots and lots of magazines. It all started from writing for the newspaper, but I mean, it's a long list of places that I worked for before I was even 21 years old.
Wow, that's cool. And I mean, that has led to you to a career, to doing interviews as well, right? I mean, I saw that you've done Arnold Schwarzenegger,
I have.
Jennifer Lawrence, Woody Harrelson, Tina Fey. What is it like to get some of those names under you for interviews?
It was amazing, and that came with having moved to Hollywood. So I moved to Hollywood when I was 21 years old. And
youngster.
Yeah.
I moved to a different city in 21. I thought I was the man. So for you to hop into a different country, that's badass.
I went by myself, just left Brazil and went to Hollywood, straight to Hollywood. But I was already working in the press. I was already working as a journalist. So I came to Hollywood thinking like I'm going to get some interviews. And, I didn't think that I was going to stay in LA actually. Initially when I came to just spend a month in LA. But then life really started working out for me. And the first job that I ever got in Hollywood was actually working as a red carpet reporter for the New Moon movie. So it was like a major premiere, like interviewing like Taylor Lautner and Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart. So that was like my first ever interview gig in Hollywood. And then from that moment on, I was kind of in the junket world where I was, being asked to do different interviews. So most of the interviews that you mentioned, they were for Rolling Stone magazine, actually. And I started writing for them when I was 23.
I mean, at 23, I know, maybe like, oh, wow, Rolling Stone, what a magazine that everyone knows. But as you think back, like, bro, I'm writing or wrote for Rolling Stone magazine that has been known infamously, like one of the most known publications of all time.
It's a huge accomplishment for sure. I'm very, very proud and very grateful for all the opportunities that I have. I feel like I had so many amazing opportunities. And a lot of it came from the fact that I did start very, very young.
Oh, yeah.
You know? But yeah, it was definitely amazing. And it was a dream to write for Rolling Stone magazine. Like, if I could imagine, like, what's the ultimate job, I would have said, write for Rolling Stone magazine.
Wow.
So when I was like 15, I hadn't even published anything. I would write concert reviews and I would send them to the editor of Rolling Stone. And I remember once he answered me and he was like, oh, you write well, but you know, you haven't published anything. You're 15 years old. You know, keep going to concerts, keep listening to music, keep writing, you know, and then maybe you'll have an opportunity with us in the future. So then by the time I was living in Hollywood and I had already done tons of interviews and I already had published a few books, then I wrote Rolling Stone again. And he probably didn't remember me at all, but nowadays he does know that story. And I said, hey, I'm Myra Diaz-Gomez. I've written this and I've written that. Like, I had a curriculum at that point. And I submitted a story about the West Memphis 3 case about Damien Echols. And that story landed on the cover of Rolling Stone. So I made my dream come true.
Front cover, dude. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, so once you conquered publications and writing and articles and stuff like that, how did you move to wrestling? How did you get involved with wrestling?
Right. So wrestling came into my life only 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's recent.
Yeah, very recent. And the desire to get in wrestling came from watching women wrestling. So I was watching WWE and I would look at them. I would look at like Charlotte and Becky and Sasha and be like, if I could do something like that, I think I would be the happiest girl in the world. I always felt very empowered. Like, they're so strong and powerful and beautiful and just athletic and everything. Like, they're just so inspiring. But at that point, I was kind of like, yeah, but I have no skills. Like, I'm not an athlete. I could never do that. And then today, actually, as we're sitting here, some of the girls from Glow, the original girls from Glow, are here with us as well. Mm-hmm. And I just told them this, that at the time I watched the documentary about Glow, and that kind of inspired me too, because they came from a non-athletic background into learning how to wrestle, into going into a wrestling television show. And in their documentary, it shows how they moved to Las Vegas to learn wrestling and started filming at the Riviera. So I had this crazy idea 3 years ago that I was going to become a professional wrestler, and I searched for a wrestling school when I realized, oh, that's what you do. You go to wrestling school. And I moved to Vegas, and I lived in the casinos just like the ladies from Glow.
Wow.
And I went to wrestling school. And I just told them, like, that was really inspiring to me, because I felt like, oh, someone who has never done this before maybe could learn, you know, and that's how it all started. So I went to school. I was in Vegas for like 6 months before Billy Corgan actually approached me to work for the NWA.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, you say, and so you work for the NWA.
Yes.
And you bring up Empower. What was it like to work the Empower show?
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
It was NWA's all-female pay-per-view or card. What was that meant to you?
It was amazing. I was so happy to be a part of it. Mickie James was the person who brought me in, and I was really grateful to her. And I've told this story before, but I remember the moment where I was backstage in the production meeting, and it was me, Mickie James, Gail Kim, Medusa.
Legends.
And I was like, what is going on, and how did I end up in this room? And I just remember it was amazing. And Jazz was there too. It was just incredible. And it was a great opportunity for sure.
That's amazing. And I mean, you just got into wrestling maybe 3 years ago, like you said. And to be a part of NWA, something that has heritage of, over 70 years, what did that mean to you as well?
I mean, it means everything. I love my job. I love the opportunity that I have. And I'm actually very happy as a backstage reporter, because it turns out like all my background amounted to this. And I just love the working environment in the NWA. I love the people that work there. And as a reporter, I love being able to interact with every wrestler and every character, and it's such a fun job. And also, like you said, it's the oldest wrestling company in the United States, and it's a privilege, really, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, you know, everything that you've done. And you know, outside of wrestling, I also see that you're a sober advocate.
I am.
That's cool. How did you know, how long have you been doing that?
I've been sober for almost 2 years now, so
okay.
It's going to be 2 years in November. And I've just been very open about it. Like I write about it all the time on Twitter. And I think that being open and being honest makes me hold myself accountable, because I have people that are looking up to me. I have people that, you know, are trying to get sober based on the things that I have accomplished. So it feels like a responsibility. And just my life improved tremendously after I got sober. So I am an advocate for it. I mean, obviously, if you do have a problem, you know, I'm not a person who's going to tell someone who's having a great time, you need to get sober. I've had the craziest times. I had like a crazy rock and roll life. Like I lived the rock and roll lifestyle, and it just got to a point where it was like really affecting my mental health. And especially during lockdowns and everything, when we were locked at home doing nothing, I was drinking like crazy. And I felt like, you know, this is maybe the time to change my life. And, you know, every month that goes by, my life improves. So I definitely became an advocate for it.
That's very cool, man. And, you know, I don't want to get into me, but, you know, as someone who's battled his own demons, is now 5 years clean.
Oh,
I appreciate
amazing.
you doing
Congratulations.
that. Thank you so much. Yeah, but, you know.
It's a lot. 5 years is a lot.
Yeah, you know, I told people last time, you know, when I hit the 5 year mark, I'm like, I'm not even going to, you know, start being like, oh, it's 6 years now, it's 7 years. Once I hit 5, I'm like, bro, I'm cool. Like, it's been gone out of me. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you being honest. And again, you know, that honesty is what people can relate to.
Yeah.
You know, so I definitely appreciate that. You know, you bring up rock and roll, I guess almost last question, but who have you been listening to recently for music?
Oh my God, I still listen to the same bands I listened to in the 90s.
Right?
Like, I
went to Hella Megatour, it was cool.
You did?
Yeah, it was great.
I'm like still listening to shit I listened when I was a teenager, honestly. Like, if you have any new recommendations, throw them my way, because I feel like I'm, I don't know, stuck in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you. Okay, well, wrapping things up, what do you have coming up for NWA or, or projects, period? Just
Absolutely. I'm about to go back into NWA. In August, we're actually having 2 nights of NWA 74. That's NWA's 74th anniversary. Super big deal. We're going to be at the Chase in St. Louis. The Chase is a historic place for wrestling, and the car is just going to be incredible. And then after we go from 74, we're going back to Nashville, where we do the tapings, and we're going to do NWA Power and NWA USA. All the tickets are available at nwatix.com, so I definitely hope to see some of you guys there.
Absolutely. And you're one of those people where you have to watch out, you have to look, you know, to see what you got going on, because you got a lot going on. Where can people follow you on social media?
Sure. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's Mayra Diaz Gomez, so it's MAYRADIASGOMES, both on Twitter and on Instagram.
Very cool. Well, I just wanted to thank you so much, May, for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. For May Valentine, I am Heartthrob Rob, and if you like what you're watching, then hop in the coffin. Follow us on social media at Coffin Radio. Coffin is spelled with a K, and that's all for today.
ASMR Coffin Radio.